Now we have Abdulrazak Namdas with us still from Abuja. Now, Abdulrazak, if you've heard some of the issues I just went through now, there are areas where there have been reductions and removal, as the case may be. Can you take us through some of the very crucial areas that you think the presidency may not have been comfortable with as far as this is concerned in the budget?
Well, let me be specific about area of agriculture, the one I'm conversant with. When the budget was brought before the National Assembly in the area of agriculture, it was just a single line lump sum. There was no details attached to the budget. And the essence of budget is not just to pass a large sum of money. The idea is for details to be attached also to the budget so that people can be asked relevant questions by the time this budget is not implemented at the right time. So I must tell you that when the budget was finally, the details was attached from the Minister of Agriculture, a 3.4 billion naira was the one that the House or the National Assembly decided to reduce, to realize that because there was no provision for youth and women empowerment in the area of agriculture. And there is no way you would do agriculture in this country without training our youths, our women on some of these programs. And therefore, we decided that this must go to areas where the youths and the women will be trained. And this was done in this manner. So it was done in good light. But you think you do an agricultural program without carrying the youth along, it cannot work.
Okay. Another issue was the removal
of
these
issues I don't know. And
okay, sorry for interjecting you. Another issue is the issue of removal of huge sums of money from key projects and added to constituency projects. And we understand that you get money for your constituency project. And there's been allegations in the past where money earmarked for constituency projects are not well utilized. For instance, even the particular issue of MDG projects were given to constituency and nothing to really show for it. So how do you juxtapose that?
Well, let me say that this is part of what people is campaign of calumny against the National Assembly. I must tell you very clearly that no member in the National Assembly, be a senator or a member of House of Reps, is given any amount of money to pursue to go and do any constituency project. The only area where a member is involved is that you are asked to choose a project that you feel it is good for your people, because you are the one that has been elected from your constituency. You are the one to decide whether you need education, or that you need water, or you need health, or you need intervention in any social aspect. And once that is done, you are now going to domicile all these projects in the relevant MDAs of your choice. If you want, you can go to border community, you can go to special duties, or you can go to SIMEDA. Once these projects are domiciled in these areas, it is the administrators, it is the bureaucrats, it is the officers who will now handle these projects, nominate their own contractors. Your job is to go and see whether this project is done according to specification. And I must add here that sometimes these budgets are not fully implemented. And once it is not implemented, it is not the member that has not implemented it. So it is not as if you have given me cash and I choose not to do it. It's not my job now.
Abdulrazak Namdas, thank you for talking to us on TVC Breakfast. It's all right. Now, back to you now, Tilewa. Let's talk about borrowing. The federal government has talked about borrowing about $5.5 billion, and now we hear China is about giving Nigeria another $6 billion. Now, how healthy is the issue of borrowing, even though you mentioned it before, but in the presence of running partly a deficit budget? How healthy is the borrowing for the economy right now?
Well, like I said earlier, the economy needs this borrowing, and we need to pass this budget properly to be able to restore business and investor confidence. It's at an all-time low. Borrowing is an integral part of this budget, and what is important is that what do we do with the borrowing? And again, it's going towards infrastructure development, not towards recurrent expenditure, which is very important. And I think the key projects have been in railway or in transport, housing, power, and works, roads. Those are the 4 priority areas the president has identified. The issue now is that we might be reaching our debt ceiling, in the sense that, like I mentioned earlier, 40% of our revenues is already going towards financing debt. As we've said, the debt profile in 1 year has gone up from $60 billion to $80 billion. So we need to make sure that these investments are going to the right place, because we might not have the opportunity to borrow next year because we've reached a debt ceiling. So important that we diversify our revenues, and that is why you see the finance minister is going all over the world to try to look for the cheapest source of borrowing, because our cost of borrowing is quite high at the moment. And she's looking to restructure the portfolio into longer term maturities and to take some of the domestic borrowing offshore. So we're looking for the cheapest sources of funding available, but at the end of the day, we are reaching our debt ceiling very clearly. Okay. And what we do now is very critical, because what we use this money for, we have to be able to get the growth in the economy, and we have to be able to reduce what we are using to service our debt. 40% of our revenues going towards debt service is not sustainable. We need to diversify and increase our revenue base.
Okay, talking about long-term maturities, the layman out there probably wouldn't understand what you're talking about, okay, but they might be able to relate with the bond market, which I realized was resuscitated about 3-4 years ago, but isn't doing so well as we speak. What's responsible for that?
Well, to be able to break it down to simple language is the fact that if you have debts of if you have a loan of 1-2 years to repay back, it puts you under pressure. But if you have to pay your loan over 20 years, it gives you more time. So I hope that clarifies that in terms of the layman's term. And the key area where you get this long-term debt that you can pay back over time are the bond markets. So Nigeria has recently been active in the Eurobond market internationally. We have a $500 million listing there, and we're looking at other sources both globally and even domestically at the moment. The government is very active in the domestic market also. So it's quite a healthy market for the government.
Okay, so one wonders why we couldn't get the Eurobond then if our bond market is doing so well.
Well, the Eurobond is expensive at the moment because of our credit rating. As you can see from the Article 4 consultations with the IMF, they have revised our growth forecasts to 2.3%. So that will put a lot of pressure on us. The credit rating agencies are putting Nigeria on standby, and we don't know if they're going to downgrade our outlook for Nigeria. If they do that, it's going to make borrowing more expensive for us on the Eurobond market. That's why the finance minister is going to China and the World Bank and the IMF for cheaper sources of funding at about 1% or 1.5%.
Okay. Now, I understand we still have Abdulrazak Namdas with us in our Abuja studio. Honorable, it's good to have you on. Now, let's look at the projection way forward on how things are going to, what likely scenarios will play out between the presidency and the National Assembly on the budget.
The likely scenario is that hopefully the president is going to sign the budget. And if the president signs this budget, we are going to be happy. Nigerians will understand that the economy will pick up. And since the presidency has issued a statement in that regard, that we have not rejected the budget, it gives us hope that there's likelihood that the president will assent to the budget. And I want to say that as a government, if the presidency feels that there are things that needed to be included, the presidency has every right to return the budget to the House, and our leaders, our principal officers will sit with members of the executive to see how best we can resolve this issue. Because we are working as a government. We are not an opposition political party. We are an arm of government. And therefore, I can assure you that we are ready to ensure that things will work. And Mr. President may likely sign. And let's wait and see, because this document has not officially been returned to the National Assembly. So we are still very hopeful that Mr. President will sign and the economy will pick up.
The word you use is likely that he may likely sign. What if he doesn't sign?
You know, it is the prerogative of Mr. President. Once you transmit this document to the president, it is now the president to decide whether to sign or not to sign. if he assents. But the idea is that we are not even annoyed that the president is trying to go through details to find out before he signs, because there is nowhere in the world that you will just sign a document without going through it. That we agree, it is even transparent. We like the idea, we like the spirit, but what we are saying that I am saying likely because it is the president's prerogative to sign or not to sign. We cannot force the president to sign, but we have done our job. Once you ask us question what we've done, we tell you what we've been able to do. And Nigerians want action, and I think Mr. President knows that. We are hopeful that he's going to sign the document.
Okay. Now, Tilewa, let me come to you on this now. You mentioned earlier on the issue of implementation of the budget. Looking at the spectrum of the Nigerian economy and society, do you see any challenge so far in areas of implementation of this budget, either by policy or in physical terms?
Well, the key area of implementation now is the policy side, without a doubt. We need to now put in place the policies and the incentives to restore investor confidence, like I'd mentioned, because a lot of the foreign direct investment and even the local direct investment has stopped. People are taking a wait-and-see attitude. So policies and incentives, I think, are the clear thing. We need to articulate them clearly. I think the Vice President has started this with these 33 points that he raised. He needs to flesh this out. The incentives need to be cleared. The financing packages also need to be supported by the central bank. We need to see an alignment with monetary and fiscal policy, especially with the way inflation is going, while the fiscal policy is expansionary. And I think to a great extent we've achieved a high degree of fiscal discipline, which we have seen with 3 trillion naira in the TSA and the sort of policies coming out from this budget. It's also important that on the monetary side, we begin to see something that is going to supplement that. The central bank clearly has to rebase its inflation targeting because it's lost control of that. And he has to decide whether he's going to support this budget with the expansionary policies or it's going to continue to contract. So it cannot continue to contract. It needs to be able to do something that will support and align with this budget.
In any case, the monetary policy can't work against. It has to be in tandem with the physical policy.
Exactly.
Isn't it? All right. Okay. Well, thank you for your time on TVC Breakfast this morning, Mr. Tilewa Adebajo.
All right. We also thank Abdulrazak Namdas, spokesperson of the House of Representatives, for joining us earlier on from Abuja.